2 years ago, when reviewing Custom Rebel for the Nintendo GameCube, I observed how rare it is to be a first-party Nintendo title and also relatively obscure and underappreciated. But reflecting on it, having recently done Pikmin Bloom, I think the Pikmin games fall into that category in their own way too. The Pikmin games have very long blocks of time between each installment, a 9-year gap between Pikmins 2 and 3 for instance. And while each has generally been received favorably, if we all pretend that, hey, Pikmin doesn't exist because that's what I plan to do, they've never really broken in massive mainstream appeal the way Mario and Zelda have. And I feel that's a shame. So today, we're going to help correct that. Join me for a closer look at the first Pikmin. Greetings everyone, this is the Hipster Snek, and today we're taking a trip to the distant planet, remember it wasn't PNF 404 yet, with Space Freight Captain Olimar and 2001's GameCube exclusive, Pikmin. And admitting that this game is 21 years old now kind of hurts my soul a little bit, but hey, life goes on. But when a routine voyage through space is compromised by a passing hunk of space rock, Olimar is sent spiraling down to the uncharted planet below. There, he discovers his beloved ship, the SS Dolphin, has been stripped down to a husk of its former glory courtesy of the rough landing, and the 30 parts of it are scattered across this alien world. And not far removed from there, he encounters a red onion, which springs to life and spits out a tiny red seed which quickly germinates in the soil. Upon plucking the curious sprout, what emerges is a plant-animal hybrid creature Olimar names a Pikmin, after the popular Pick brand carrots which are common to his homeworld Hokotate. And conveniently, the Pikmin are also inclined to obey whoever pulled them up, meaning Olimar gets his own cleanup crew to assist in the process. And lo and behold, in the same area as his crashed ship, he finds the engine of the ship, the most vital piece of his journey. Straight away, and his struggles for survival is given a real fighting chance, as both the Dolphin and Onion enter low orbit to avoid nocturnal predators. However, there is one last but very serious problem. Olimar's sensors indicate this planet is heavily oxygenated, an element poisonous to his people, and his life support systems only have power sufficient to last for 30 days. So it's a race against time to harness the little obedient life forms and wield them against the horrors of nature in order to recover the lost ship parts in time. Thus the story gets started in earnest. And to begin with, for an early GameCube title, Pikmin looks fantastic. While you can see a bit of jagginess when you zoom all the way in, I find my most comfortable camera view is a bit further out than that, and thus the environment and the subtle animations found all around you in the environment paint a picture of a natural, almost serene world. A clever and subtle artistic trick put into full effect here includes having background objects in a duller color palette, closer to earthen browns and darker greens, whereas things that must command the player's attention, for example the giant bulborb monsters who dot the landscape, are clad in saturated red with white polka dots making them impossible to miss at a glance. Even the Pikmin themselves obey these rules, presented in bright red, yellow, and blue respectively, and the pellets they use as nutrients to generate more of their kind from their home onions are similarly color-coded for your convenience. The entire world is beautifully rendered with careful attention to color scheming and light and shadow. For example, one level has you delve into a cave area, so you must navigate a much darker zone where your visibility is more limited, or another where pristine water effects at the nearby shore. It all goes to show precisely what the little purple lunchbox was capable of, and I think it deserves its proper respect. Sound-wise, the game sets about trying to create a natural ambiance for much of its backing tracks. Even the theme song, while iconic and distinct, is just that, a theme song for the title screen rather than any kind of recurring motif. Instead, each area has a gentle anthem that plays while all is calm, while select battle tracks queue up for mid-boss and boss fight encounters. And the sound effects show that a lot of care was put into each detail, since it really seemed like the team felt the need to strive hard for a motif of realism in a game that is decidedly not grounded in actual scientifically sound realism. The Pikmin have voices all their own, usually high-pitched, cartoonish, and endearing. It's clearly just voice actors being sped up, but it's pretty cute nonetheless. The wild animals of this world all have personality to spare in their own right. The puffy blowhog makes a strange, wispy sound as it careens through the air. It makes it sound like a balloon deflating upon being defeated. The large bulborb enemies have low grunts of exertion when they try to go on the hunt. I kind of get why this game was advertised in a faux documentary style here in the West. Shame the game didn't have a Piclopedia until the sequel, though. But what the game does have is engaging gameplay. You take the role of Captain Olimar, who behaves as something of a leader role to the Pikmin or a commander. Then you can have up to 100 Pikmin in the field at any given time, between those planted in the ground awaiting plucking and those who are otherwise above ground and currently active, and comprise of any combination of colors as you see fit. See, each color of Pikmin has color-coded onion nests as their home, and once activated, Pikmin will drag home any foodstuffs that they find, be that the aforementioned colored pellets or their prey in the form of would-be predators that Olimar skillfully guides his Pikmin to dispatch. Or maybe not so skillfully, depending on how good you are. I'm not here to judge. Whatever color the majority of Pikmin carrying a particular prize are is the colored onion it will go to, provided it's not a ship part, which will always be delivered to the damaged dolphin. The individual talents and abilities of each Pikmin must be used to overcome different challenges and puzzles, so let's go over those real quick-like. Red Pikmin, the first type you get, are the best fighters, dealing a bit more damage to enemies than any other type, and they're also immune to fire hazards. Blue Pikmin, the last you'll find, don't drown in water due to their mouth-like gills and, as a result, tend to be a bit over-relied on throughout the course of the game. And Yellow Pikmin can be thrown the highest, the only quality they'll retain consistently across the entire series, as all their other abilities change. And they're also the only Pikmin to be able to pick up and use the double-edged sword known as Bomb Rocks. Bomb Rocks are precisely what they sound like, small stones that are actually powder kegs waiting for you to make a singular mistake and detonate, wiping out entire squads of Pikmin with ease. See, Olimar can whistle for his Pikmin in order to quickly retrieve them from distractions, or to help guide them to shore from drowning, even to blow out fires that catch on their heads. However, if you throw a bomb rock-loaded yellow Pikmin and whistle for them, they'll just forget what they're doing, drop the bomb rock where they stand, and rush to your side, allowing the stone to detonate on sight. Thankfully, you can get around this because Olimar will bring any Pikmin he walks into back into his squad safely, even if they're handling high explosives at the time. I don't like bomb rocks, if I haven't made that perfectly clear. I am so glad the rest of the franchise abandoned that mechanic. Using these myriad talents, you take your squad of Pikmin who, like ants, are individually weak and easily preyed upon by the wildlife of their native homelands, but by using strategy and sheer numbers, you can turn the tables to overpower would-be predators. Giant Bulborbs attack their backs. Burrowing Snagret swarm their beaks when they try to breach the surface to slow them down to a crawl. There's always a way to fight smarter and a way to spare a great number of Pikmin casualties along the way in so doing. On his own, Olimar can throw a punch, and it's enough to deal with very tiny threats like the sheer grubs or maybe even very small dwarf Bulborbs if you have a little skill, but ultimately you serve as tactician of the Pikmin horde at your command. So do you allow your Pikmin seeds to germinate in the ground till they pop up a flower, or do you yank the ones with leaves right from the ground and deal with their lower movement speed? Do you take the time to cultivate huge numbers, sometimes taking days to amass said numbers in the event of an emergency, or is time more precious and thus your sub 100 count having to work for now? Challenges like this will come up along the way, and better yet, in addition to the main campaign, there is also the challenge mode, which is unlocked once you get far enough into the main story, wherein you try to grow as many Pikmin within the allowed time limit and see how far your skills get you. Add that on top of the length of the campaign, and its hidden optional boss encounters and the potential for a 7-day challenge run, then you have a game that will keep you hooked and intrigued on this strange, alien, familiar, distant planet all the while. Now, if I did have to issue a complaint, it would be bomb rocks. But since I've already said that, there are some things that can make the game a little bit frustrating at times without actually adding any challenge. See, the game is broken up into days, with Olimar and his Pikmin landing first thing each morning and working throughout the day, then returning to low orbit to avoid nocturnal predators and other potential threats unseen in the dark. So at the end of each night, you'll want to round up any Pikmin. Those standing under their onions or the dolphin or those in your immediate squad are all safe when that time runs out, but those left idle in the field are automatically lost. Now this may not sound so bad at first, given that a good commander will generally be able to keep tabs on these kinds of things. However, each Pikmin runs on its own individual AI, and out of a group of 100, there's bound to be 2 or 3 idiots. Pikmin very prone to tripping or getting left behind due to their own ineptitude. So suddenly you have a very stressful countdown from 10 and you realize 1 or 2 are just in random parts of the field, chilling out, and it can feel like you're being penalized through no actual fault of your own. Second, the C-Stick helps swarm Pikmin and controls the general shape of your squad, given that things in large numbers tend to move more like a liquid than a mass of solids. This means going over narrow bridges can often feel like an operation in logistics, just to make sure none of them stupidly dive right off the sides and plunge into the water. And we all know that it's never the blues who dive in on this, right? The Pikmin might be a little too stupid for their own good. It creates a level of micromanagement that can feel counterintuitive to the overall flow of gameplay is what I'm really trying to say. But overall, I have to say that Pikmin is an impressive game, both as a stress test by having hundreds of things on screen at a time and tracking each AI individually, but also as a game that's immensely fun to play. Despite its relatively short runtime, the game is a treat, and I strongly advise anyone who gets the chance to play it should. There was the original release on GameCube and the new Play Controls version for the Wii, and if you have either of those collecting dust and want something to play on them, that's definitely always a good time. You really should take Pikmin out for a whirl. You won't go wrong. This has been the Pick Snek, bringing to you an overlooked classic for your entertainment today. Be sure to hit the like button if you like today's episode. It helps us out a lot. And for more like this each and every week, be sure to tap the subscribe and bell icon so you'll never miss a one. Leave a comment down below. Have you played this game before? Or did I introduce you to the world of Pikmin for the first time today? I'd be curious to know. And join me 5 days a week for content including Snekflix, Snek Tech, and the new home of the Tomodachi Bros Review podcast. And I will see you there.